Alrighty, we are back with round 4 of the Balance Patch Premier Challenge here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm Jake Major, joined by
Sam Fletcher.
And we have a lovely match with George ElMassih against Matthew G, who we did just feature on stream. But there was an executive order cast upon us to bring Matthew back on the stream. But George has a really cool team, and I didn't even get to see it in team preview, with Araquanid, Rillaboom, Incineroar, Raging Bolt, King Gambit, and Porygon 2. So 3 Pokemon that we have not featured on stream yet today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see this Araquanid come out. And, you know, it looks like George's team really has that Trick Room flair. We're going to start, this is the first Porygon 2 that I have seen in Reg F, just speaking personally. Maybe I haven't been playing enough, but I do think that especially Porygon 2 is really kind of flavor of the month back in the end of Sword and Shield, when it could eat some big Dynamax attacks, set up Trick Room, get things all set up. And now we're seeing it here, staring down an Urshifu and a Fluttermane. Urshifu can just get faked down. I don't think the Fluttermane can take out that bulky Porygon 2 before it can twist the dimensions.
Yeah, so we saw Porygon 2 actually going for a Terra Fairy here, and I don't think we saw a fake out come out from that Incineroar just now. So Terra Fairy going to be going out on this Porygon 2. I assume just trying to take 2 hits and maybe get a parting shot out to get a freer time in Trick Room. Trick Strike going into the Incineroar as well. Just going to be a clean knockout into Incineroar as Porygon 2, not needing its Terra even, just going to be able to get up Trick Room, and George, I would assume, just able to get in a very strong Trick Room attacker.
Yeah, you know, that was interesting because Incineroar could have saved itself. If it went for a fake out onto that Urshifu, as you saw, it was able to eat the Moonblast without a problem. So I'd like to think here that George was making a calculated decision where, you know, it tried to use the parting shot on the Fluttermane. Either way, he wanted this Araquanid out on the field with as many Trick Room turns as possible. And so now we see the Urshifu coming back. I wonder if this is going to be an Incineroar coming out to try to throw and intimidate off onto this Araquanid and lower its damage output. That's what we've got here. A lot of times I've seen Araquanid with the clear amulet item to try to mitigate the effects of Urshifu's Intimidate. Here though, George is running Mystic Water. So he's trading some of that security against Intimidate for some a little bit more pop. And so we'll see if this Intimidate is enough to spare his Fluttermane, which has now used a very valuable Terra from the incoming liquidation. So here it comes, and that is enough for a clean 1-hit knockout.
So either that Fluttermane not trained to be defensive enough, or, you know, Araquanid
is just that guy.
So a special attack boosted Tri-Attack, I believe I saw, not doing a lot into the Incineroar. Is that Assault Vest? No, it's actually Figgy Berry. So that Tri-Attack doing a lot less than I would have thought, in all honesty.
Yeah, it looks like Matthew's back up to his old tricks of fake out rotating, and that's usually a very effective strategy to deal with Trick Room. George does not have a Farigiraf, he does not have an Indeedee, so he doesn't have a great way to stall out or to avoid some of these fake outs as the Trick Room turns slowly count down. However, one of the advantages of Porygon 2 is the fact that it will stick around. It's got Recover, it's got Crazy Bulk, so even if the Trick Room ends up running out of turns, George can just set it back up.
Yeah. So I think a really interesting play going for that Terra and no fake out here. Kind of iffy, if you ask me. Because I would have loved to have a Terra Water Araquanid to do a lot of damage. Although, you know, with that Rillaboom, maybe not. Parting Shot going into the Araquanid here. Not going to let Incineroar get out of jail for free, as it or whatever it wants to switch into is probably going to have to take a -1 liquidation here.
Jake, did you see what George has in the back with that 4th Pokemon is?
I didn't happen to notice it.
Because if it's that King Gambit and he manages to call the parting shot, then that could be a boost and a half. So we'll see what happens. It looks like the strategy with George's team here, in foregoing that clear amulet, is that he's trusting the King Gambit to kind of deter the Intimidates and keep the Araquanid doing as much damage as it can. Unfortunately, here comes a Woodhammer. That's almost going to be enough to just clean one-shot the Araquanid. That part bug typing, the only thing keeping it from dropping immediately.
Absolutely. And now, bringing the Urshifu back onto the field doesn't really care about whatever business Araquanid wants to get up to, but definitely not appreciating that special attack through the Tri-Attack. Our players are clicking their moves very quickly here, very dedicated to their options. Incineroar is going to come back in, get off another Intimidate onto the Araquanid, probably expecting a lunge, not a liquidation, so not going to take too much damage, especially at -2, and Araquanid having relatively pathetic attack stat with that water bubble really being what carries it. Porygon 2 going for the Ice Beam is not going to be very effective, but a chance to freeze as we don't see Circuit Strikes coming out onto Porygon 2. The interesting thing with Araquanid and Urshifu actually is that both of their attacks don't really damage one another all too much. They both resist each other's same type moves. So they're kind of at a stalemate, with Urshifu probably being able to throw about more damage thanks to Surging Strikes, while Araquanid, can throw out Lunge to try to reduce critical hit damage. Not really. But a very odd position. It almost seems like a stalemate where Urshifu is just stuck doing a lot of damage, and George can't really do all that much damage in return.
Yeah, I think George was in kind of an awkward position there in Trick Room with all of Matthew's ability to switch in and out. The Water Bubble actually coming in clutch there, providing a resistance to Flare Blitz. I think that's probably surprising George. Porygon 2 going straight for the recover, so we're not going to see a Trick Room here. But I wonder if this liquidation into Incineroar is enough to pick up the KO. It will not be, given all of those attack drops that it's faced, and Incineroar is going to eat that berry and regain some health and maintain the speed advantage because Porygon 2 did not click Trick Room.
Yeah, so an interesting move not to go for Trick Room here. And also an interesting move not to double up that Porygon 2 here, knowing that one of the things you can't let happen is let Trick Room go up. We know you need to provide, or maintain rather, that speed advantage, with speed being so much a part of Pokemon. Letting Porygon 2 survive here, probably not what you want. But because we know it's that King Gambit in the back, as we see, I'm not too worried about Matthew's position here.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if further down the line in one of the future games, George should take advantage of the fact, King Gambit, close combat, takes the close combat, and that 4-time super effective hit is just going to drop it. That was an excellent play by Matthew, knowing that anything that of all the things that could switch in, the King Gambit's probably the best option, and that it does not want to take that close combat, followed up by knocking off the Eviolite from Porygon 2. What a fantastic turn for Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, that couldn't have gone better. Matthew making an incredible read, saying, Surging Strikes, close combat, they're about to do the same amount of damage. I don't need the critical hits. And if I pick up a switch in here, so be it. And he sure did.
He got exactly what he was fishing for. And now, especially as Game 2 comes upon us, I wouldn't be surprised if George tries to take advantage of the fact that a couple of Matthew's Pokemon do not have Protect. When you're in Trick Room and you can be switched around and protected around, you know your opponent is just trying to waste your turns. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, say, Araquanid click a liquidation into a Rillaboom that he has an inkling might be switching out for an Incineroar, and as well as doubling up on that with, say, an Ice Beam from the Porygon 2. Doing that would allow for him to really cover his bases and maybe kind of pick up that big switch in damage, just like Matthew did there with the close combat into the King Gambit. Those are the turns that really swing games, and Matthew came out on top of that one, which is why he took Game 1.
Absolutely. George, Matthew did win. George, I wouldn't be shocked to see that King Gambit come out a bit earlier to prevent that cycling of Intimidate. But the thing you do have to watch out for if you're George is Incineroar and Urshifu still are threatening that King Gambit. After you Terra, maybe not that Incineroar, but most certainly that Urshifu.
Yeah, I agree. That seems to be kind of an issue with the team, with the strategy here, that one of the most common Intimidate mons hardwalls the mon that's supposed to be get the most benefit from being hit with the Intimidate.
Exactly, and this King Gambit is the Black Glasses set, as we can see here, not running something like Low Kick, which would be more free to handle Incineroar after a Terra, let's say. So Matthew really taking his Firewater Grass Core and making the most of it with Flutter Mane to boot out some extra damage. George definitely going to have to do a lot more of his Trick Room turns, prevent that Intimidate cycling, maybe get Porygon 2 out in favor of something like King Gambit, maybe bring his Raging Bolt, which is not going to care about that Urshifu, not care about that Rillaboom, not care about that Incineroar, and throw, because of its Dragon typing, just throw out more and more damage. And with that Calm Mind set, it is going to be able to sit on the field for a long, long time.
Yeah, we saw in the previous round Ethan have some success against Matthew's team using his Raging Bolt, but it appears that George kind of locked in his picks and he knows he's going without it. He's going to run with the same 4. On the other side, though, Matthew switching things up a little bit.
Yeah, so as we made note in last time Matthew was on the stream, this Chimpao is not Terra Ghost, so it cannot avoid a Fake Out here, and nor can this Urshifu. So Porygon 2 looking to get a relatively free Trick Room, gonna have to take some damage for its troubles, but as we noted as well, this Chimpao does not carry a fighting move, so if Incineroar just fakes out Urshifu and clicks Trick Room, a pretty good spot for George.
Yeah, and we saw last game Incineroar in trying to be a little bit greedy and get out with the parting shot. It ended up just getting knocked out right away by a Surging Strikes. And so it looks like this time George has decided, hey, you know what? I want to save this Incineroar. I think it could be a useful tool for pivoting. And I'm going to fake out the Urshifu and protect myself from getting hit by a Surging Strikes. And now he's in a great position to just hard switch in Araquanid, because it's not going to take anything from either of these 2 attacks. We'll see if George tries to call that out, or we'll see if Matthew tries to call that out and maybe parting shot into it. But as things stand, it looks like very inviting for Araquanid to come onto the field right now.
Yeah, one thing to note, as we mentioned, that Araquanid not carrying Clear Amulet is going to allow Incineroar to be able to parting shot it relatively freely, where if it was carrying that Clear Amulet, it would have blocked it. But Matt, not taking any sort of bait here, just goes for a Surging Strikes into Incineroar and fakes out to prevent a parting shot. George probably having to make a dedicated switch and not a passive parting shot switch here. And gets in Araquanid for free, but without Incineroar in, without that fake out pressure, without that Intimidate pressure, gonna be a tough one to climb back from.
Now, it should be noted here that this time, because Porygon 2 did not Terra Fairy, George is free to click that Terra Water. However, he has to be very, very wary, just in case Michael has that, or just in case Matthew has that Rillaboom in the back. Terra Water is going to remove the Araquanid's resistance, or is going to remove the neutrality, and instead make it weak to Rillaboom's priority grass attacks, which would not be great, especially if you're trying to survive, especially if you're trying to keep it around and output all the damage that you need to. And here comes Chimpao, interestingly enough. We'll see if the Urshifu decides to attack. No, we have a double switch, so I wonder if this is the Rillaboom that could give Araquanid some trouble if it decides to Terra. Yes, indeed it is, and it's also offering some fake-out pressure.
So yeah, Matthew just sticking to his tried and true Firewater Grass Core. This time, instead of Flutter Mane, bringing Chimpao to get off a little bit more offense, and maybe Haze just in case of King Gambit. So a pretty good call, but I'll bring it back. Chimpao not having Sacred Sword, kind of not great here for Matthew. We are going to see the Terra Water Liquidation going to Chimpao. That is absolutely bringing it to his Focus Act. I'm surprised it didn't just ignore the Focus Act and take it out altogether.
Yeah, that's a strong, strong move right there. And it gets the defense drop just to boot. But there was not a double target. Tri-Attack's going to go into the Rillaboom and only take about a quarter of its health down after factoring in the Grassy Terrain recovery. And now, things are looking pretty good for Matthew, given the fake-out pressure. There is a little bit of awkwardness, though, right now with his team. And it's that Chimpao's only really reliable attacking move is Ice Spinner. And that would take out the Grassy Terrain set by the Rillaboom and remove the priority that comes from Grassy Glide. So it'll be interesting to see if Matthew decides to click that move and he does not, he opts to go for Protect. That makes me think that the Rillaboom is going to attack here and not use Fake Out. It does as Grassy Glide comes into the Araquanid. It survives and goes for a lunge, and that's going to take it out. I was honestly surprised. I thought that a Liquidation might have been the stronger base power move, factoring in everything. But we also may have been in a situation where either of those would have taken the KO.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I know Araquanid, those water attacks hit really hard. I'm honestly surprised Lunge KO'd a Rillaboom there.
As am I. I think the Sword of Ruin obviously really helped that.
Right.
But now we'll see if the King Gambit can do anything here. The Araquanid has to be very wary of a Sucker Punch. It looks right now like it's not really respecting that. King Gambit could alleviate that by going for a Sucker Punch on the Chien-Pao, but it decides not to. So we'll see. Urshifu goes for a Detect. We'll see if a Sucker Punch comes out into the Araquanid. This could be a disastrous turn for George if the Sucker Punch is what comes out. It does not, however. In comes a Lunge. Araquanid has picked up 2 KOs with its Bug Stab tonight, despite being Terra Water. And now, here comes the Incineroar, and guess who's getting that boost?
That would be King Gambit, is my guess.
That's correct, although the Fake Out pressure does make things a little interesting, and I think George is running out of Trick Room turns once again.
We actually did just see it expire. You blink and you miss it. And even though King Gambit is going to be getting a +1 boost, I don't know if that's enough to handle a resisting Urshifu. Even though it's at half HP with black glasses, it's going to be a tight one, but I don't think it'll get there.
The Fake Out goes into the Araquanid. That's not enough to take out the KO. So here comes the Sucker Punch, and Urshifu tanks it. And that, with the close combat, might be curtains for George. We'll see if the Porygon 2 can come in and do anything, but given that Urshifu's Unseen Fist is going to ignore Araquanid's Protect, it might be Porygon 2 against the world, and we'll see if it can take out the Incineroar.
Absolutely. And I think you just called out a great play there. There may have been potential, well, obviously we haven't seen the turns play out yet, but with Urshifu being able to hit into Araquanid and ignore Protect, there's no chance of getting up a free Trick Room here while maintaining Araquanid. So George's way to get back into this would be Matthew's potential misplay of Incineroar attacking the Araquanid and maybe a close combat into Porygon 2. So if Matthew recognizes that out of being able to hit through Protect, it is going to be very tough.
And there's the close combat into Porygon 2. It's not going to take it out. And so if Araquanid had protected here, we could have had a very interesting endgame play out in front of our eyes. But as it is, that was an impressive call of the play there. But unfortunately, George did not recognize that out, and Araquanid goes down. Porygon 2 is going to try attack the Urshifu and take it out, but now it's at the mercy of knockoffs and Flare Blitz, and we'll see if it can recover enough health to take out the Incineroar. But I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to find out.
Had we seen a Flare Blitz into Porygon 2 there, maybe the close combat would have been a bit better of a play. But right now, we're going to see
there's a little Terra going on. Oh, and you know what? This is Terra Fire. So get ready to see a little bit of extra pop from the Flare Blitz, and I think that should be enough to take the KO. Normally we see Incineroars with these defensive Terra types, but this time Terra Fire is going to ensure that this Flare Blitz takes the KO, and that is a 2-0 for Matthew.